My name is Molly. I am a fan of the brick, and it's the new year, which means it's out with the in and old with the... Out with the old, in with the new. So I thought it would be a great time to talk about old Lego versus new Lego. So a while back, I got a box of old Lego at an auction. So I thought it would be interesting to talk about how can you tell the difference between an old Lego from back then and a new Lego from now. You'll hear people tell you that essentially there is no difference between Lego that were made in the 60s and Lego that are made in the now. Yes, technically old Lego pieces and new Lego pieces are compatible, with a few exceptions. Here are two 2x4 white Lego bricks. One of these is very, very old, and one of these is very, very new. But which is which? They're the same size, they're the same shape, and they connect together. So, really, there's no difference, right? Ha! False. They are not identical. How can you tell the difference between an old Lego and a new Lego? One of the first things you can look at is the color. An old Lego, probably not going to be a pure white color because it's old. It's maybe been out in the sun, it's seen some aging, it's been through some stuff. So, if you have a brand new Lego and you put it next to an old Lego, usually you can look right at it and be like, oh, that one's slightly more faded or just not the right, it just looks wrong. Another difference has to do with how they make the Lego and how they made it back then. Now, I've never been to a Lego factory. I don't know exactly how they're made, but I know it has something to do with plastic being poured into a mold. And I do know that back in the day, when they would pour the plastic into this mold, you would get this little tiny dot on the side of the Lego. But if you look at a newer Lego, you're not going to find it. The sides are all perfectly smooth. But you will find that dot on one of the studs, usually. So I'm trying to find it on here. Oh, yep, it's on this stud, this second one over. Another way you can tell the difference, what's printed inside, and of course you kind of have to look really closely, got to get some good light going on, maybe a magnifying glass. But if you look really, really carefully, you can see inside.
On older Lego from about before 1980, it'll usually say something like patent pending.
Patent pending. And on the new Lego, it doesn't say that. Instead, you'll find the part number. You can also see one other difference is the structural integrity of the inside of the piece. On the old Lego, there is no cross brace going down the middle, but on the new Lego, there is that on the bottom, and that just helps support the structural integrity of the brick. But basically, yes, they are completely compatible.
I have been comparing bricks from the late 60s and the 70s to bricks from the 2010s. There are many other variations out there. For more information on the changes in Lego bricks throughout the years, please see the links in the description below.
Now that's just for the 2x4 bricks. When you're looking at some of the other pieces from back then and comparing them to the pieces of more recent times, you can see some really big differences. For example, this is a more modern base plate, 1 brick high. This is an 8 by, I'm sitting here counting them, I think it's 8 by 16. And as you look at the bottom, you can see that there are lots of cross braces. Very sturdy guy, right? But then this is a base plate from back in the day. And if you look at the back of this one, you can see that these circles only go around the edges. And inside there's some braces, and then it's just nothing. And I have seen some of these that have broken on the bottom or broken completely, but this one and some of the other ones that I got at this auction have all held up, pretty well. Alright, so I talked about how most bricks are compatible with their older counterparts, but that is not completely true in all cases, and one of those I wanted to point out was these vintage clear pieces. Something is wrong with these vintage clear pieces. They do not have clutch power. I do not know why. They go on the top. You can do that. That's fine. But if you try to stick anything else onto them, you can see it just doesn't stick. And I just threw it down there somewhere. I don't even know what's with these clear ones. These are official Lego, these are vintage, and they just don't hang on. And this is trying to clutch onto an older brick, and here I'm trying to clutch it onto a newer brick, and it does not seem to matter. It will not hang on. So, a couple other differences from back then. They did not obviously have the variety of color that they do now. In my box, I've got red, white, blue, and a little bit of yellow. Of course, the clear. I also have black. in the way of the tires. But yeah, they were very limited on color. I do think they had some green back then in some of the sets. I've seen pictures with some green, but mostly a lot of red and white, which makes for some really good candy canes. So I thought it would be fun to take my box of vintage Lego and just see what I could build. So I gave myself 30 minutes to see what I could come up with. And now I'm going to show you what I built. Okay, obviously you got a lot of red and white. You had to go with like the Dr. Seuss hat, Cat in the Hat, whoop-de-doo, and the candy cane, obviously. I also thought it might be fun to build a snowman, but I think he's kind of demonic looking. I bring you love. I also got one of these gears. These are, I think, 1970s gears. I made a little smiley face with this one, kind of creepy. I don't mean to make creepy things. These old vintage Lego just sort of lend themselves to making creepy objects. I also tried building a house, but I did run out of sloped pieces, so the roof's flat now. I don't have any doors or windows in my collection, so I just used blue for the windows and the door, and they don't open, but... Okay, made a heart. Kind of reminds me of the heart from Zelda. And, I don't know what this is, I just made it and I just broke it. I also made my name out of Lego. So you got the M and the O and the L-L-Y. And that was what I was able to build in half an hour. Are you impressed? I will say, okay, bricks from back then, the red, the white, the blue, is it limiting? Yes. Is it making it a little harder to build something cool? Yes. Because I'm looking at these going, what do I build? You know, I don't know what kind of things kids would build with their Lego back in the day. I'm assuming they would build cars and houses and things. But, you know, when you're limited with these colors, what do you do? Plus, you are also limited by piece sizes, I will say. There's 1x2 brick, 2x2 brick, 2x4 brick, but no 2x3. And then as far as the 1x's, they had 1x2s, and they have these 1x8s. And some 1x4s were in there too, but no 1x1s. Nothing smaller than a 1x2, which to me, that was like the worst thing, because I was like, I need some 1x1s, and they don't have them. They do have a lot of wheels, different sizes, some big ones and some smaller ones. Unfortunately, I have never been good at making cars. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please subscribe to me somewhere here on YouTube. You can also follow me on Instagram or Twitter as Mo, M-O. Make stuff up. Thanks for watching. Bye!